Welcome back, everyone. The first month is finally complete, and I'm able to hop in here and give you guys a nice little recap of everything that happened this month in terms of the process, the progress, all that great stuff. So with that said, here we go. So on the first week, it was kind of a little disappointing. We had some SD card issues, so I wasn't able to get them tearing down that wall right there because there used to be, the room that this camera is positioned in right now, that used to be a little bit of a crawl space if you didn't watch the original 4 videos. So we came in through this little crawl space right here. You can see on the right where they're putting this conveyor in right now. That's actually the entrance to the outside. And so this was just a little crawl space that we entered in through, and then they demoed this wall right there to the main basement that was unfinished. It was like halfway finished. It's pretty old, I want to say. I'd say it's probably 30, 40, maybe even 50 years old, just based on the wiring and all that stuff on that other basement. But they never had it finished, fully finished. I mean, all the framing was up, all that stuff. So super close, but never finished, like I said. So we tore in through back there. Now we're going to be just digging this down a little bit more. I want to say that in that main basement over there, that's probably a 7-foot ceiling that they got on there, 7 feet of clearance and room height. So we're going to be just taking that down to 9 feet. We usually do a lot of 9 feet work around here. Mostly all the basements that we do go down to 9 feet. I think that's just the standard and people are most comfortable with that. If you go 10 feet, then you're really not gaining anything in terms of, you know, bang for your buck. You're just paying more for, I guess, a little bit of headroom. If your family's full of giants, though, I guess it's worth it. But 9 feet is the sweet spot, so that's usually how far we go down on these dig outs, just a 9 feet height. But you can see here in the crawl space area, they're making quick work of all this dirt and excavation. They just put up these temporary pillars that you can see here. That's going to support the structure above, the house above. So safety is a very important part of this process. We want to make sure that we're working safe and there's no possibility that anything can go wrong on these jobs. Sorry guys, don't get hurt or anything like that. So you see these guys put those pillars up. That looks great. And you can see they just pretty much got all this dirt out pretty fast. So working pretty fast is how we like to roll. But switching the angles up here, you can see we have some other contractors in here. We don't really touch any of the demolition. We didn't bid for that. So we have another company or another contractor comes in and they actually demo like the walls and like they take out the water heater, boilers, anything like that. So we don't touch any of that because we didn't bid for it. So luckily this is a pretty big job. So we have a lot of room to work around because when it comes to relying on other people, we've noticed that they can be quite slow, which is unfortunate. So luckily they're able to get the water heater and all that stuff out. So we were able to get work done over there where that was previously, where those concrete bags are. You can see that. And the nice part about, like I was saying, with these bigger jobs is that even though if another trade is working slow or whatever, we can generally work around them, versus in a tighter kind of basement, it's almost impossible and we have to wait. Because we have another job at the moment going on where it's just like that. We're waiting on another contractor to take out some water heaters, take out some framing, take out some staircases. Because, like I said again, we didn't bid for that kind of stuff. And so we've just been on hold for, I want to say, a couple weeks now, 3 weeks, just because we're waiting. And it's really unfortunate just how that kind of situation works out, but in the end, that's how it is. But like I said, these bigger jobs are so nice just because everything can keep flowing, even if another trade is falling behind. So this is really great to see that the guys are just kicking ass, even while there's some delays. So switching the angles here again, you can see just how open this room is now that that wall was taken out. Just completely changed the surface area of this room in terms of square footage. Turn down walls is one of like the biggest ways to add room to anything, I swear. The second a wall goes down, even like a framed wall that you can see through like these, the second that we tear those down, this room's gonna feel massive. So this is always really fun to see, is just how open these jobs get near the end and just how much space, extra space, is provided by this dig out process for the clients. So coming in here, you can see another great part about a nice big open job site is we have like 6 guys down here working, and none of them are getting in each other's way, which is great. So six guys, 3 crews, 2 crews of 2 can be working all at one time without really getting in each other's way, which really makes the job go by fast. Because on our smaller basement dig outs, we can only afford like 3 guys down there just because there's not enough space for so many. And even then, only 2 of the 3 guys are able to work, while one of them kind of just does miscellaneous stuff for the other guys. So the bigger the basement dig out, it's a lot more work in terms of like excavation material, how many footers, but it generally goes faster just because you can get more manpower down there, as well as just no one's in each other's way. So you can see here they're doing footer work. They got the wheelbarrow with the quickcrete technique that we like to use down here. And so they're filling those footers right there. All that blue stuff that you see, that's a vapor barrier. If you're not familiar, that's going to keep moisture out of the basement and prevent any future water damage from leaking in, which is always a positive, especially in more rainy climates. Denver, it's pretty dry here for the most part, but we like to add it just for that extra security. All right, switching the angles up here again. You can see just all that dirt, all that nice brown, thick dirt that he's shoveling right here. So something that's really incredible that I always find in these basement digouts is just how compressed all this dirt is under these homes, and then once you start digging it out, how big these piles get. Even if it's like one little footer hole or like 2 footer holes, or even just like digging 2 feet down in a small little room, the amount of dirt that you're able to get out of such a space is incredible. But you can see here just how effective our conveyor system is. So the guys are wheelbarrowing this over here, and then they're going and they're conveying all that dirt out. And then we have another crew of like a guy or two, and they'll run that dirt that's shot out of the basement to a dumpster or whatever they need, a trailer, to export it out of the area. So switching the angles here again, you can see more footer work going on that back wall. And it's super nice on these jobs where it's like a low, we're just bringing it down a few feet, is because the footers are really small and those are really quick to do. You don't really need to make too much of like a frame for them or anything like that, or form, I mean. You don't have to make too big of a form. It's pretty easy work. So these jobs are probably the best. So this is probably one of our best jobs yet in terms of just like getting stuff done. This thing is moving. But switching over here again, you can see here that conveyor belt that I was talking about. The thing works miracles. So you can see here he's throwing it in, it's going out, he's making a pile, and then someone outside is just taking that over to a trailer and getting rid of it every like hour or so when it's full. And then we get a lot of questions why they just dump the dirt right there and then throw it on the conveyor versus just run it to the conveyor and then throw it back in. And it really just depends on what all the guys are doing, because when you have a crew of 6, you don't want just like 2 guys standing around shoveling all day. They can get worn out pretty quick. So we try to keep them doing like stuff that's quote unquote entertaining, you know, that doesn't bore you to death, or you're just shoveling for 8 hours a day. And it also just comes down to timing and stuff. Like 3 of the crews might be all working on footers and no one's really over there shoveling, just because the footers need to get done ASAP, that kind of stuff. But it really just comes down to each crew and how they like to operate. So here's another angle here. You can see the quickcrete they're bringing in. We use a ton of this stuff on these basement digouts. It's just so effective to just bring those bags wherever you need it and then mix it in the wheelbarrow and then pour it wherever you need it, which is awesome. Because every now and then we do use the pump trucks for like structural stuff like the footers and the if we have any like bigger walls that need to be poured. But for the most part, it's just quickcrete, just because the guys work fast with this stuff and you're not waiting for a pump truck every hour for just a couple of footers. So you can see here's another angle. And it goes even faster too when like the guys, because this crew especially, they like to just all shovel at once and then they just really pump dirt out super fast. Now this is a really good angle. You can see on the back wall there, that brick wall, we have spray paint, blue spray paint, and that's signifying the sequence in which we're gonna put up these footer walls. So A's are gonna be our first ones. Well, you can't see it now, but A is gonna be our first one, and then once those are cured, we're then gonna dig out the B sections and then pour those footers. And the reason we do that is for structural integrity and just to make sure that the building is stable. Because if you were to just do one wall at a time, right? Now you just dug under this entire wall for the length of, let's just say this is 50 feet I'm super bad with that kind of stuff, but let's just say this wall is 50 feet that we're looking at here, and you dug under that wall, and you're going to pour just 1 footer all at once. Well, there's nothing supporting that wall now, so that whole wall would just cave in on itself. So the important part of this is just that A-B sequence, or even an A-B-C sequence. That way you're just keeping support up on that structure. But you can see here, when it comes to these jobs, lots of digging, and I mean lots of digging. So you can see there in that back corner, we have the AB as well on that brick wall. So pretty much that AB sequence runs across the entirety of the basement. And then when we're done, we'll go ahead and scrub that off, make it look nice, or the contractors or other contractors will cover it up with like a nicer wall or something. But that's what that's all about. That's probably the most important thing to take away from this, is just keep in mind that you're under a building and you need to work safely, right? Because when you're removing material like this, you're removing like structural bits that you really don't think might be structural, but they could be. So you always have to think before like you do something, you hit a wall, you take down a wall or whatever. So we're really big on just like planning ahead and making sure that we're thinking about these things as the job goes on. Because the last thing you want is a house to fall on all of you guys, which is not very fun. But coming back here, you can see those forms I was talking about. So these are a little bit higher than the ones that were on that previous wall. So these are probably 4 to 5 footer walls, and you can see just how much bigger the forms are. And so these bad boys, you can see that they have like a little cube at the top, and that's where they pour the concrete in. And then once it's cured, they'll rip that form off, and then they'll hammer off that little chunk that extends out. I went into more detail on that in a previous video. And that's the nice part about the weekly updates, is that when I'm there, I like to take video on the phone and really like get into detail with the processes that the guys are doing. And it's kind of hard to do with these videos just because I'm trying to describe the entire process versus small little things. So if you're interested in like the smaller things that go on in these basement digouts, be sure to check out the weekly updates, because then I go a little bit more into detail into like the specifics of things. But here you go. You can see that form going up right under the camera right there. A lot more quickcrete coming in. And you can see just how much quickcrete we use as well. It's astonishing. So this is no easy feat, especially for a one-man crew. Because we've seen a few of those videos on YouTube where it's just one guy digging out his basement. And those dudes deserve a lot of respect, because this is no easy task, especially for one person. And the nice part about like what we do is we have a crew, which makes these things go by super fast, super easy. For the most part, I want to say there's still challenges, but it's way easier than doing it yourself. So you can see here, right where he's digging that hole. So that was a B footer. So they just poured that A. You can see the very top of it right there, that smooth concrete with a little bit of that sharp edge at the top. But right next to that, he's now starting to dig the B. So this is what I was talking about in terms of, I think you're going to see it, yeah, right here. So the dude in the blue, he's digging right next to that footer wall. And so now he's on the B section. So since those two footer walls are cured right next to each other, they're now supporting the structure. So therefore, he can go into that dirt, which is really unnecessary at this point, or not supporting the structure anymore, I should say. And now he's going to dig in, and then they're going to get ready to pour those B footers. And you can see here, they don't do all the A's at once, per se. Like we have some A's on this right corner by the entrance, and that's just because that's the main entrance, so they're going to get to that later when all the dirt is primarily excavated and they have a little bit more room. So there's not really like a strict like workflow process on these jobs. It's more or less like on a per job basis. You kind of like make a game plan, and then you decide on the best course of action throughout that job. But you can see here just all the room going on here. And then the nice part too about all the room and space is the guys have plenty of room to store stuff. So like the quickcrete bags, they can put the wheelbarrows out of the way when they don't need them, all that kind of stuff. So the bigger the basement, the easier, per se, in terms of like efficiency. Then you can see all the guys coming in here to dig all this dirt out, and they're able to do that super quick. But yeah, you can see just how big these piles of dirt get when it comes to digging all these little footer holes out, because honestly we didn't even excavate much. All this dirt for the past couple of minutes just have been from footer holes. We haven't been doing any major excavation. So that's what's really surprising to me, is just how compressed all that dirt is. And then once you start picking away at it, how much it expands. You can see here they're working in that corner, getting all these done. So here's that as well. And then this is going to be a really fun job to see the before and after, just because that crawl space added in so much extra room to this basement. And that's usually what we see a lot of clients do, or homeowners per se, is that a lot of these houses have basements, but they're not utilizing the full like square footage underneath the home. So they might have like half of it an actual like basement in terms of like 6 feet, 7 feet. And then they have all this, like half of the other extra space is just a like unused crawl space. And so we're seeing a really large push in this direction of just a lot of people wanting to dig out underneath their homes to increase their space. So we've been doing a lot of these jobs this year. It's been fun to see. And it's really fun to see just underneath all these homes, like the different construction techniques over the years, because we've done like newer homes, we've done like really old homes, small homes, big homes. And I think the funnest part for me personally when I go out there and film is just to like inspect the building and just like see the processes that were done before, like during the main construction of the home, and like how times change. But you can see here, wrapping up pretty fast here. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of just efficiency. All these guys are moving around, not really getting in each other's way. And they're really able to just pour these footers, excavate, all this stuff, get it done super fast. So this is probably one of our quickest jobs to date. And I think it's just partly due to as well that they had a pretty large basement, a 6 foot, 7 foot basement. And whenever it comes to just like digging down basements, it's a pretty easy process. It's when you get to like the crawl space stuff and all that, when you're digging down 6 feet because you're only working with a 3 feet crawl space, that's when these jobs get pretty long, just because of the amount of material you have to excavate. And you'll notice we primarily use shovels and hand tools. And that's just because it can be a pain to get like a skid steer or like a mini excavator down here, and especially try to be like not hit anything, right? You see how many beams and posts are in this job site. And so at the end of the day, it might be a hindrance even, just because the guy operating has to be so cautious not to hit one of these poles that are holding up the ceiling. So we just use hand shovels because, one, when you have a big crew, it goes fast anyways, and really it's just how we prefer to work. But with that said, this is going to bring us to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, if you haven't checked in to the weeklies, be sure to check out the weekly updates. I go more into depth on things. But with that said, thank you for spending your time with Gold's Concrete. See you next time.